Hello and welcome to IT Tech Talk. I'm your host, Joel Ward, and with me today is a very special guest, Seth Holmes, and he is a local artist. He has a bunch of different art in watercolor, and I am really happy to have him on the show. Seth, how are you doing today?
Great. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's awesome. It's a pleasure to have you. I have been following your art since I won it actually at one of the events in our local town. And it was eye-opening because I didn't even know you existed there for a while because I never seen your art. And then all of a sudden, like I get this art, I'm researching you, I'm doing like stuff, and I'm like, wow, this is really, really good. And actually we have some of it, you can't see it right now, but on the other side of this wall, well, for people on YouTube, we have your art hanging in the office. So yes, so we have your art in the office, and I have a couple actually at my office at where I work full time. So yeah, we love your art. Me and my girlfriend, we love your art. We have it hanging everywhere. We actually want to commission you at some point to do some art for us for the show. So yeah, Seth, a little bit. If you could give my listeners a little bit more about you. I mean, I've been giving them a little bit, but if you could give them a little bit background on what got you into art and why you have chosen it as a career path.
Yeah. First of all, I'm glad that you won that raffle. um, so I've sketched and stuff since I was a kid. I've done a lot of drawing and just kind of sketching and playing around with stuff. And I used to try to go for a really realistic style, and it always frustrated me a lot that I wasn't great at perspective and stuff. I never had any formal art training. I always wanted to, go to school for that, and it was conflicted in my mind of, is this a useless degree? You can't make a living at art and all this. And I don't know, I just had a lot of doubts and never really pursued it. And so I don't know, I guess skip forward to 2018. I had moved out to Los Angeles to get into the film industry, and lived out there for a while and met a friend who introduced me to watercolors, and played around with it a little bit and didn't really do much with it until 2020. At the top of the pandemic, I was living with a friend back east. Had moved back here, back east at the beginning of 2020, and pulled out the watercolors because I thought to try to see if I can sell some stuff on Etsy or Redbubble or whatever. So I started doing movie characters in my kind of style and scenes from movies. And Redbubble took it down, said I was violating copyright, despite there being images pulled directly from movies, being sold on shirts and everything. So then I said, forget that. I'll just start doing original art, and just did a bunch of whimsical images, and then ended up moving to Waynesboro for a job. And when I was here, I just started seeing a lot of the architecture, a lot of Victorian architecture and the beauty here, and pulled out the watercolors again and tried to capture some. And the Postmaster's building in Rouserville is the first piece that I did that, I don't know, I didn't know what I was doing. And when I looked at it, I was like, whoa, like that actually looks like something. I want to try to recapture that. And so I spent the next couple months trying to develop a style and kind of recapture whatever had happened there. And so I ended up kind of getting my current look, which is different. If you look at that, you can see that it's a lot sketchier, a lot looser. Just got a different quality. But yeah, then last September, my neighbor, who was an artist, and some people around town were encouraging me to try to do something more with it, and sell it, turn it into a business. And they were a huge help in getting everything started, and giving me a lot of advice. And thankfully, um, over the past year, I'm thankful to God that He's allowed the business aspect to really flourish. And I'm making about minimum wage, but making a living on art, which is something I never thought would happen or was possible. So it's been a really awesome uh, experience with it so far.
Yeah, and one of the things that I like about your art is you do a lot of the local architecture, and I love our local architecture, and some of the ones you captured, and I don't think you have them up for sale. I haven't seen them, but like Volt with the old Volt building, and like in Frederick, and just the architecture around here is just pretty like surreal. Like you got some well built architecture and like within like miles of each other. Like Frederick, you've got some Waynesboro, Chambersburg. There's just some really great architecture. And one of my favorite buildings actually was the Postmasters one you did. Like that building, like just it just looks so real. And like even the Waynesburger one I got, or like the one I saw you did recently, the one of downtown, like just the downtown capture of like the square that we not the square, but the courtyard we have, and it just looks like it just captures and embodies the essence of what you're trying to capture, which is the architecture itself, like how it's real and it's there, and I like that. And one of the things that stood out to me was your art was that you don't just draw like to like I would say not draw to draw, you draw to capture the essence of what you're drawing. And I like that. Like, I like how it embodies the what's the word I'm looking for? The building when you're sketching buildings and you're drawing, like especially the Postmasters or even like Volt, like it looks so real, like it could jump out. Like it's a watercolor, but it looks realer than a watercolor. And that's what I like about your art. It's real. And some of the ones you do, like the cow, like the cow and the cat, like it's just funny, it's goofy, but it's so cool. Like it's like I couldn't do that. If I was to try, I used to do watercolors back in the day, and I could never have captured something that cool. Like it's not like I could never like I tried to do art watercolors. It wasn't my thing. But no, you capture everything you draw. Like I honestly think, and this is just my opinion, but you I honestly think you should draw like a book, like a little like sketchbook or something
Hmm.
like and sell a sketchbook. I don't know if that's something you've been thinking of, but like a little like a book of sketches or even like book of art that you should sell.
Yeah, yeah, I would love to do that. It's definitely something I've been thinking about. I mean, I've really been wanting to do like a coffee table book of some of my favorite architecture around Waynesboro. But it's really interesting. I was taking a walk in a park here the other day, and I met a gentleman who I don't know. We just got into a conversation, and I showed him some of my watercolors, and we're talking about some of the architecture around town. He had actually written a book about the um, the guy who designed a lot of buildings around town, John Dempwolf, and he actually also designed the building that was, that housed Volt and now Thatcher and Rye, as well as a lot in the Waynesboro area and some in New York. And so some of the buildings that I've looked at a lot and really admired turned out to be Dempwolf buildings. So it was fascinating to me that 100 years apart, there's somebody who had a vision for something and a style and an appreciation of certain forms, and that was constructed, and 100 years later I'm looking at this like, oh wow, this is beautiful, and wanting to capture that. It's weird. It's like, man, I would love to just talk with him back then. But yeah, it's really interesting because architecture isn't something that I ever thought I'd focus on in any way, art or otherwise. And I don't know, I've always had an appreciation for buildings, but just I've started noticing a lot more as I walk around town. I'll look up and just immediately I see a different kind of shingle or a little feature, a little I don't know, just all the little things that make a building unique and give it personality, and um, just so much fun.
No, I get it. Like I like okay. I've lived in Waynesboro. I mean, I've lived in the area for about 31 years, but I've lived in Waynesboro for about I think 8 now. And when you drive downtown, yeah, I've been driving downtown for years, okay? But when you like you catch something catches your eye, or it's like something new, and you're like, wait, that's been there? Like what? And even when you drive around the back parts of town or you like go somewhere new, it's like, wait, this is part of our town? Like I didn't know this existed. And so when you go around like to these different areas like Frederick and Shippensburg or wherever you're at, or Waynesboro or Chambersburg, like the architecture just catches your eye. It's just like there's a lot of cool buildings, and it's funny. Like I actually think I saw your article about, or your post about the guy who did the buildings. I was like, I didn't know that. Like all these buildings were constructed by one person. It's like all these buildings that you like, I also think are really great too. It's like, wait, these were all constructed by one guy. Um, so the history is what like really draws me to this area. Is like there's a lot of history
Hmm.
within, like if you think about it, I think Frederick has about 257 or 275 years of history. And then you got Waynesboro, which has got all the um history of being oh, what's the word I'm looking for? A town that built industry town, an industrial town.
Oh
Like it
yeah,
had
yeah,
like all the industrial buildings that are, some of them aren't even here anymore, but there was so much industry in this area alone that, like, I think I read somewhere that Waynesboro was actually the richest town in America at one point.
yeah.
And that's not true anymore. I mean, kind of is. And there's a lot of wealth in this town, but it's dwindling because a lot of the rich people that used to live here and lived up in not Cowan's Gap, what is it, Penmar, the
Penmar.
Penmar, yeah, the
Hmm.
Penmar area, because there's so much history up there too. People don't realize there's so much
Yeah,
history with the there used to be a hotel up there that used to
yeah.
draw in crowds and stuff.
It's
And there's so
gorgeous.
much, yeah, and it was a beautiful, and I go to Penmar with my kids a lot, but like there's so much history up there, and that people don't realize that this area was so full of rich history, and it's dwindled over the years because our towns kind of forgot, and in the areas kind of forgot about the history, because it's like, people don't really care about history anymore. I'm a history buff. So like when I found out about the hotel up there, I researched it, and my dad actually years ago knew about it because he's grown up in that era of when the hotel was around. And he remembers that people would travel from Baltimore to come down to Penmar and stay in these rich, extravagant homes in their summer homes. And it's like you look at it and you think, wait, my little area had like all these people
Yeah,
staying. It's bizarre. And you know what? I like that like you get that, like you get that there's a lot of history and it needs to be captured and like basically preserved, and you kind of preserve that history with like those paintings. And maybe like years down the road someone will see that your art and be like, wow, like, and maybe those buildings won't be around, and they'll see your art and like, wait, where was that? And you'll be able to give them a history of those buildings. So the question, I'm going to a question with this, is when you go to places, do you try and learn the history before you paint the building, or do you just kind of paint it and get the history as you go along?
um, I I have like 3 or 4 books about the history of Waynesboro and some of the buildings and the industry and everything that I intend to read. I've been listening to a lot of audiobooks because it's very hard for me to just slow down and read. I always want to be doing something, and I always feel like I can be doing something with the business or painting or, seeing friends. So it's something that I definitely want to learn more about. But I really enjoy talking to people and learning from locals. And it seems just naturally I meet people and end up having conversations about the history of town. So I've learned some through them. Um, Not enough, unfortunately, to like recite a lot of it, but I have a general idea of the history of Waynesboro. And yeah, there were like I think 4 big manufacturing companies here, and that's where a lot of these beautiful buildings come from. The old Victorian buildings was, yeah, they were built by wealthy people, and that's that's something that I'd like to do, is get more involved with like the historic society and some of the people that I've talked to in town who have shown an interest in preservation and also like going forward, what kind of identity does Waynesboro have, and what can we create, because most towns will just end up getting a lot of you know chains and corporate businesses and losing whatever identity they might have. And I'd love to see Waynesboro kind of preserve the historic and really, showcase that beauty and the history of what was here. I was talking to Rodney Clark from Gallery 35 East earlier about like he does model trains and stuff, and just saying how amazing it would be if we could get some grant money for somewhere in him or somebody else who's interested, or a team just makes like a reproduction railroad of the the trains that used to run through town, stuff like that. I have a lot of ideas of what I'd love to see this place. And a lot of other people in town have some really great ideas. Um, so I don't really know a whole lot of the history before I do the paintings. It's just see beauty and want to capture it. And um, yeah, but another thing, this is off that question a little bit, going on a little tangent, but one thing I really want to do with the watercolors, and that I love about creating these places, or capturing them in paints, is from the beginning I was like, I don't just want to do something, have a business or work that is just fulfilling to me. Like, yes, I could have any job, and it really doesn't matter. I want to create something that other people can buy into and appreciate, and means something to them and is significant. And so there's been some really cool um, interactions with clients, and one of them around last Christmas, um, somebody bought a print of the candy kitchen that I'd done, and she said that an old friend had recently moved back to town, or was can't remember if she had moved back or was visiting, but her and her friend used to walk to the candy kitchen every day after school. And when she saw that print, she's like, it has those memories. It's not just a building, it's not just something pretty, but it's got a life story, in it, and it's significant to her and her friend. And like, I love that sort of stuff, that these paintings can hopefully be so much more than just something you put on your wall, but something that's really personal, and people feel like they're a part of.
Yeah, no. So off your thing, a couple of things was I like what you were saying about preservation of our history, this town. I mean, I'm actually a natural born Marylander, so I was born in
Mhm.
Maryland.
Same
But
here.
Waynesboro has, since I've been living here, has such a history. And I like going to Starbucks, don't get me wrong. I'm glad we have a Starbucks now, but there's nothing wrong with going to your local Brio coffee house and checking out and getting some like local coffee, or tasting some of the local cuisine or something. I get that we have all these chain restaurants, but there's so much local cuisine and local
Hmm.
like art and buildings like the Mason Dixon Creations. There's so many different places, antique stores and stuff that we have, that like I just finally got to walk downtown since everything's kind of opened back up, and it is so much rich history and rich stuff going on in downtown Waynesboro. And for
Hmm.
those who are listening, it's Waynesboro, PA, not Waynesboro, Virginia, and actually Waynesboro, Tennessee. There's a couple Waynesboros, but this is Waynesboro, Pennsylvania. There's just so much rich history in this town, and you talk about preserving history, and I honestly think that we need to, as a collective, as a town, get together, and a couple of us just find a way to preserve some of that history. I know we have the historical society, but there's got to be a way to like even build like a small museum other than that, and get some
Hmm.
of the
Yeah.
history, and showcase what our town has really done over the last few years. I like that. And the other thing was, you were talking about, was how someone realized that that was her childhood, and that's the reason she has it. A lot of the art that you portrayed, it's just like even the buildings, even the new postmasters. It's me watching that, like especially you doing the Postmates or Postmasters building. Um, looking at that, I'm like, wow, like how our town has grown. Like you think about it, like
Hmm. Yeah.
Waynesboro, like years ago before Walmart or Lowe's or anything came here, I mean, for me, since I've lived here so long, it's like it's just so weird seeing all these new businesses and buildings growing and expanding our city. It's like I call us a city, not a town, because literally we like even Rouserville, like I don't consider Rouserville. I consider it part of Waynesboro, because this whole little town has grown into a city, because I think I checked, our population is well over 10,000 people living here. So like we are not just a small little town anymore. We are a huge growing metropolis, and we have all these businesses coming to town. We have all these local businesses that are growing and expanding, and it's great to see that. But like going back to what you said, preserving the history of the town, it should be a must, especially since we were a growing industry town years ago. I would like to see us collect that information, and I think DL George has his own little collection of art and history about it. So if you haven't talked to DL George, I would definitely consider talking to DL George about his history. He's got I think he's got in his one office, he's got like a little museum or something. But consider talking to him. Yeah, there's so much people who have a lot of history in this town that I think we need to collect and put together on a room and have stored so people can look at it. So yeah, I do believe in preservation. So Seth, before we close out the show here, because we got a few more minutes, there's a lot of cool buildings that you haven't covered. Is there plans to cover different buildings in Waynesboro and Frederick and Chambersburg in the next few months to a year?
Definitely. I've been doing a lot of commissions, which takes up a lot of time, and then I also offer classes, and I definitely want to put more of those on the schedule. So there are other things, my time is divided between other things, but there are, yeah, definitely a lot of local businesses. I want to capture Sapporo and Nikki's and Eichholt's Flowers and 633 Brewing and like a lot of local businesses. And then I want to one that I want to do the interior of We Scott Bookshop, and she's growing, but I definitely want to do that. And real quick, what you're saying about the craftspeople, like that's one thing that I really love about this town. Two of the things that kept me here were I told my landlord when I first moved here, I'll be here maybe a month, and I'm going to go find the film industry, and I don't know, might move to Wilmington, North Carolina, or Savannah, Georgia, or somewhere. And as I met more people and I learned about the arts community here, that they started building that up about 10 years ago. Andrew Sussman and Rodney Clark and a couple others uh, really did a lot to bring the arts in the town, and now it's thriving and growing. There's so many great artists in different styles. I feel like there's a lot of great art that's different styles. Nobody's stepping on anybody's toes. That's one thing I really love about it. And then all the crafts people, you have ceramic artists and the coffee shops. You have people making wood crafts and jewelry and like just all sorts of different businesses here, local businesses. And what you like, I would love to see sort of that return to the old industry that this town had when it was those four huge manufacturing plants, but a lot of small independent businesses just growing and building each other up and building up the town. And I'd love that to be something that Waynesboro is known for, and people come to see and buy and check out. And there's just so many really talented people here. Yeah, I love this place. And
Um,
633 Brewing, I learned, like, you walk in there and they have photo albums of a lot of like they're full of newspaper clippings that somebody had donated, and handwritten notes about like historic events and just the history of the building itself. And they really care about this town.
yeah, one of the things I wanted to ask you and about that, and real quick, I want to promote you as well because I think we have I think you're going to be at the October 9th event at Catoctin.
Um, I don't know if I'm going to make it to that one. I will be at the October 1st market day in Waynesboro.
Okay. Well, I will be there as well, so I'll catch you then. But I wanted to promote you for that because I was like, I saw there was a big art fest going on in October and on the 9th, and I really think that like you're right. There is a lot of like buildup of artists that don't step on each other's toes. There's so many. If you go to like the Market House and behind Main Street, and there's
Hmm.
so many artists in there, and if you go to like Mason Dixon Creations. There's so many artists in there and like just craftsmanship and stuff. I've got a few friends that do stuff and people. I have a ton of local business friends in this area that do different things like the Mount Musser Kettle Corn. I know them and the Dusk and Dawn, which is now Postmasters. I
Hmm.
know them. I've known them for a while. We've known the family. They've just got so much cool like coffee and arts and crafts coming in this area, and cheese and jewelry. There's so many different things that we can all combine together, and it grows the community. And I'm glad that you fell in love with our little area, because it has that all that in one place. And I would like to shout out to Brio, not that I'm promoted by them or anything, but their coffee's great. Like, I love the staff in there. It's great. It's a great little building. And if you're coming through Waynesboro, you live in Waynesboro, and you haven't checked out Brio, check them out. They're a great little coffee shop. It's wonderful to support your local brands, and it doesn't matter where you live in Tennessee. Doesn't For my listeners in like Colorado or wherever, listen, you're supporting local businesses is a great way to support your local industry. And like we were just talking about, Seth's talking about, is bringing industry to the area. It doesn't matter if you're a big industry building. You can be a small little craftsman and still bring growth to the industry that's in your area. Yeah. So on that note, on industry and growth, you wanna see expand. Are you planning on working with, like you said, you have classes and stuff? Are you planning on working with like Bill on the downtown Waynesboro Main Street project? Are you planning on working with them to try and grow the area? Is that what your goal is, to try and help grow, like, and bring like growth to the area?
So far, I just started really getting into the business side of all this about last September. So all my focus and energy has kind of been on making a steady income and, stabilizing that. And I feel like that's kind of getting to a pretty balanced point. So once I'm kind of in a routine, yeah, I definitely want to reach out to more people. I was just thinking today, I'd love to talk to some, just throw it out there and you know see the inside of the interiors of some of these historic buildings around Waynesboro, and maybe collaborate with somebody who's interested in journalism, an up and coming journalist, and and really try to put the spotlight on Waynesboro and the history and everything that was going on here and all the buildings, and uh, either capture it through photography or watercolors, the interiors of a lot of these buildings and the beautiful exteriors. And um, but with yeah, and there's several things I want to definitely want to talk with Bill about. I have a lot of a lot of ideas, and I know probably a lot of other people in town do too. So it'd be really cool to collaborate and see the town grow and build, but not just in a kind of the way that a lot of other towns do, but really give it an identity and a look, and that one that maintains our roots and the history here. And you had mentioned Brio. Yeah, I definitely am very thankful to Rodney and Janelle Cool, who let me put up some art there. Like that was one of the first places I ever put art. I can't remember if I approached them or they approached me. I don't remember, but I put up 3 paintings there and had my information. He said that was fine, and that's where a lot of people started getting interest and reaching out to me, and got a lot of commissions through them. So, and their coffee's great. So, um, yeah, them and Postmasters both, because like the building there, I mean, it's just a beautiful building. So that this strike of inspiration. Um, yeah, I'd definitely love to could collaborate with other people who love this town and see it grow.
Yeah, and I don't know if you realized, but the coffee Postmasters actually was in a different building at one point. They cut the building in half and remade it into a whole new building. So that building was actually, I think, a bar at one point, and it
Mm,
had like this, like, it was weird. It was a weird shaped building, and they cut that section that was off, and where Postmasters is, they added on to where Arlene's building is. And became a whole brand new building, and it shaped up and looked really well. Um, I haven't had a chance to go in there yet. I do normally stop at dawn dusk when I'm at the market days, but I don't have a chance ever to get out to um Postmasters when I'm in during
they,
the day.
they actually have the sign from that old business
Okay.
inside right now at the counter, and they just put up postmaster sign where that was.
Oh, nice, nice. Yeah, they're a great family, and they've done a lot for the area. I know their dad does a lot of construction in the area, and you were saying about the people who in Brio, they just everybody's done a lot to help support the the local community and do a lot for the soccer teams or the baseball teams, or even just support local downtown businesses. It's been great to see the town grow and expand since COVID. Like I was worried a lot of the businesses were going to shut down, but a lot of them held in there. But there was a couple that just faded away, and you don't hear from them anymore. But no, I'm so glad that a lot of our industry in this town is growing and expanding. Well, hey, we're on our time. We got like, I think 8 minutes left, but there's a question I like to ask my guests before the show ends every episode. And it's, if you were to go back, like if you were to go back and tell your younger self something about, like, to the lines of, hey, this is what I would have done to change, like I would have done this sooner, would you have told your younger self to like do watercolors sooner, or would you have stuck with the you think you would have stuck with the cinematic stuff?
Um, it's easy to think that I would tell myself something different. And up to about a week or two ago, I probably would have said, yeah, I would have, you know, told myself something. But I've been listening to a lot of books on history and and just seeing how things are worked out, providence and also, looking back in my own life, looking at things that I didn't do, mistakes, just bad decisions, all sorts of stuff. And I kind of started a short story along this line years ago, but uh, if you take all that away, then it changes who you are now. It changes your present, and so I feel like in a way, there are things that I regret or would have done, could have done, should have done, but I am where I am now by the grace of God, and wherever He leads me in the future, and I just want to be content in that. And I think it's shaped me to who I am. If I'd stayed out in LA, I guess it's the road less traveled, right? You always wonder, would it have been better? Maybe, maybe not. Like it would have been a different road, but it would have had different ups and downs. And I'm thankful for where I am and the people that I've gotten to know, and you know just thankful for the opportunities that I've had. So
That's awesome. Seth, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been such a pleasure. I'm going to leave your links to your site so people can purchase your watercolors. Yeah, so everybody can reach out to you in case they want to do commission work. But thank you so much for going on the show. It's been such an honor.
yeah, thank you for having me. It's been awesome. I've always wanted to be on a podcast, so thanks
You're welcome.
for making it happen.
It's a lot. I actually, you're not the first person to say I've never been on a show, but I've always wanted to go. So it's like, it's great that I can offer people a slot on my show. They can like advertise their product or advertise what they do in life, and get to also the opportunity to go on their very first show. So it's pretty awesome I get to do that. But yeah, Seth, thank you so much. For those who tune in on the subscription page, we have more subscription content coming out. Thank you so much for subscribing. Please stay tuned for more content. Thank you so much for those who listen daily and weekly even. Thank you so much for those who support the show and give donations to the show when they can. Thank you so much. And Seth, thanks again for coming on the show.
Thank you.